Tony's been excavating gold for years, but his most recent discovery will leave you terrified. Sure, it was gold, but the amount of gold he found was unbelievable. And just as mighty as the bounty was, the process of the excavation was just as hard, leading to some truly scary moments on the way.
Heart attack.
Is he okay? Did he pass?
It ain't helping.
So join us as we explore Tony Beets' most recent discovery during his gold rush excavation. A gigantic mass of gold. Beets have always been the king of Klondike, but recently things have been a bit tough. Tony had been focusing on a site called the 80 Pup Cut, where they found a massive chunk of gold. This was a pretty big deal, something that had never happened before, and he'd been pushing hard to keep the gold coming from there. Tony had been hands-on with his crew, making sure everything was running smoothly. But then it gets a bit tricky. Heavy rain turns the whole area into a muddy mess, which can be a nightmare for miners like Tony. Basically, the rain floods everything, and that makes it impossible to mine or find anything valuable.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
Mike, get out of there.
Tony's a veteran miner, so he knows this is a real challenge. Sadly, he can't control the weather, and he can only hope his mining plans for the year aren't ruined by the rain. Just a while back, Tony committed himself to an intense schedule. He was working round the clock, 7 days a week. It showed his determination to overcome any obstacles in his way, and he knew that he was behind schedule and needed to hustle to reach his goal of getting 5,000 ounces of gold this season. Tony had to adapt quickly to the situation, and one of his strategies was to increase the water flow from the trommel to help settle the surrounding materials, which would help maximize gold extraction. He's always driven by ambition and takes full responsibility for any issues that pop up. However, in a tricky turn, they found out that the settling ponds weren't reinforced enough, and there were already signs of trouble brewing in that area. And then, to top it all off, the team reports over the radio that several dikes have ruptured. Now, it's important to understand that dikes are super important in mining, especially when it's raining. They basically keep everything in check by stopping floods, protecting the mining structures, managing runoff, and keeping things stable. When dikes are properly designed and kept up, they're crucial for keeping workers safe, reducing environmental harm, and making sure mining runs smoothly. In the end, because of these dikes, Tony's got to make a tough call, and it's going to cost him some serious time. In Gold Rush, every single minute counts, but sometimes you have to take a step back to keep things moving forward. However, Tony doesn't give up that fast. Despite the rising water levels and the relentless rain, he's digging in his heels and refusing to let Mother Nature have things its own way. In this line of work, timing is everything. Tony's well aware of that. He's pushing his team hard to make sure they're squeezing every bit of gold out of each day. With a serious look on his face, Tony makes it clear just how crucial it is to shore up those ponds, and he doesn't waste a single second, directing his crew to tackle the issue head-on. But even with all their efforts, the water keeps coming, and rain doesn't stop. At this point, Tony's beginning to feel the pressure, and it's spreading through the whole team. But why is this pressure even there in the first place? Well, because Tony's got a goal. Tony's reaching for 5,000 ounces of gold. This is why the craziness is affecting him so much. He's trying to get to 5,000 ounces of gold, but nature isn't on his side. However, that's not the only thing in their way. Just when you think things couldn't get worse, their excavator gets stuck in a pond.
It has been raining a lot, so water is gonna keep coming in. This is not good. This is bad. Yeah, I'm stuck here in 220. This is not good.
Sure, it's a nuisance, but this also means some serious financial losses if they're unable to fix it. So what are they supposed to do next? Well, they have to put the brakes on mining until they sort this mess out. And every second they're not mining means dollars slipping through their fingers. Then, a glimmer of hope emerges. Cousin Mike steps up to the plate, and he's all ready to tackle the problem head-on. But if you thought things were finally going to get better, think again. His excavator gets stuck too, and they're all back to square one, facing yet another roadblock in their quest for gold. Now here's what Tony does. He decides to launch a sort of emergency operation, roping in 2 extra excavators to help out. But efforts don't really get them anywhere either. This is when Tony realizes that they need some serious firepower. So he doesn't waste a second and calls in the big guns, the 18-ton D6 dozer and the massive 115-ton D11. These beasts arrive to help free that stubbornly stuck excavator from the muck. But what's the actual game plan? Tony, drawing on his mining experience, comes up with a solid plan. First things first, they gotta drain the water from the area. To do that, they put the trusty D6 dozer to work, pushing fine tailings into the pit to create a sort of ramp. The idea here is to stabilize the ground under the stuck excavator, setting the stage for its eventual rescue. And once that's done, it's time to bring out the mighty 115-ton D11 with its 850 horsepower. With this, they gear up for a thorough patrol, scouting out ways to pitch in and help Tony Beets out of this jam. Eventually, Tony figures out a way to maneuver that massive D11 onto the ramp they've built, making sure it can handle the weight like a boss. The goal's pretty simple: get those two excavators unstuck from the mud. Even with all the risks involved, Tony takes his time, weighing up the options, figuring out the best way forward, and it's quite the sight to see. As the engines roar and the machines kick into gear, it's like watching a battle unfold right before your eyes. And let me tell you, getting that stuck excavator out of the mud is no walk in the park. He's there, right in the thick of it, giving his crew the lowdown on what needs to be done and how to do it right. Every move is calculated, every decision made with precision, all to ensure they're on the right track. And slowly, things start to get better. A glimmer of hope. With each step of the plan, that once muddy mess of a settling pond starts to shape up. Tony's eyes light up with pride as progress unfolds before him.
Perfect, Mike. Awesome. That went good, huh? Anyway, I'm happy it is out.
Feeling pumped and optimistic, Tony sees a glimmer of hope on the horizon. But he's no stranger to setbacks. He knows there could be more challenges lurking around the corner, waiting to throw a wrench in his plans. Klondike rain specifically has been one hell of a challenge. It's been wreaking havoc on Paradise Hill, causing delays everywhere. It's not just about getting wet, it's about safety too. Rain can turn a stable excavation site into a danger zone in no time, putting the workers at risk. In the end, Mike's cousin had to face Tony's wrath. He didn't mince words, because when someone messes up, he calls it like it is.
Yeah, I'm stuck here in 220. This is not good. We're gonna need some equipment here really quick.
If you hang in, then I'll bring them to you in a minute. Holy, you got us stuck, did you?
Yeah, it's a mess.
That's no surprise.
There's sugarcoating and no beating around the bush. Initially, Tony had spelled out exactly what he wanted the team to do, how he wanted them to do it, and when. So when things don't go according to plan, you can bet he's not thrilled. Now, with an excavator out of commission and work at a standstill, the big question is, can Tony and his crew bounce back from this hiccup? Tony's not one to shy away from taking responsibility. He knows that sometimes the devil's in the details. So he's leading his gang and making sure everyone's on the same page, working together like a well-oiled machine. However, it's not all serious business with Tony and the gang. They've got a pretty tight-knit crew, and they're not afraid to have a laugh, even in the face of adversity. Tony ends up having to give instructions in English, Dutch, and Finnish, but it just goes to show the kind of environment Tony's fostered, a place where everyone feels comfortable, even when things get tough, counting the gold. Once they finally struck gold, it was time to weigh it up and see if they'd hit their target. Tony's emotions are riding high on this one because he was all tied up with the numbers. Every ounce they found was a big deal, and the success of their whole operation hinged on those numbers. They had 9 diggers out there, counting away as they sifted through the rocks. Every count was like a shot of adrenaline for the whole team, as all of them were praying and hoping that they would hit the mark. The tension was building as they counted 240, 250, 260.
40, 250, 260, 270, 280, 290.
Each number was either a step closer to victory or a step closer to defeat. Then, eventually, they hit the jackpot. 350, 360, the ounces just keep piling up. By the end of the day, they had hit the mother lode. The team had found $500,000 worth of gold, totaling a massive amount of $850,000.
That's looking pretty good for 6 days.
Absolutely. That 80 pub does very well. Well, it looks like it's paying good, so that's the best part. But the weather is so we're not quite there yet. Anyway, so far so good. I'm pretty happy with it.
Now, if that's not a reason to celebrate, I don't know what is. Tony and his crew had proven once again that when it comes to mining gold, they're the ones to beat. After 6 days of non-stop hustle, Tony and his crew hit an impressive milestone: 4,601 ounces of gold. A massive chunk of that gold came from the 80 pup. Tony's been eyeing this spot for a while now, and even for the future, he's feeling pretty optimistic. He thinks they might just strike it even richer down the line. Tony's all about results, and if the gold's rolling in, then he's happy. Sure, he wanted to hit that 5,000 ounce mark.
We're aiming for the 5,000 ounces, and the way the gold price is right now, you get 5,000 ounces, you get $8 million bucks. I mean, what's the matter with that?
But considering all the hurdles they faced this week, he was feeling pretty satisfied with what they'd pulled off. Tony is in a league of his own, and his determination sets him apart from the rest of the pack out there in Klondike. But with all the challenges Tony's faces, there's a chance his mining dreams might hit a speed bump or two. His goals might not pan out, and it's got everyone wondering, will Tony keep his crown as the mining king? Or is it game over for him? Well, for now, he's not going anywhere, and here's why. Gold Rush is more relevant than ever. The show has been a hit on the Discovery Channel for years. It's entirely focused on following mining crews as they hunt for gold out in the wild. So far, it's been one heck of a ride. It all started with 6 guys heading out to Porcupine Creek, Alaska, trying to strike it rich after losing their jobs in a tough economy. And from there, the show just took off. Over the years, they've explored all kinds of gold-rich spots, keeping viewers glued to the screen with their adventures. From Rick Ness to Tony Beets, Parker Schnabel, and the rest of the crew, the audience has been right there with them, cheering them on as they chase their dreams. And it's not just about the gold, you know. They've tackled some pretty heavy things, too, shining a light on issues that hit close to home for a lot of people. But what's really cool is how the show's managed to stay true to its roots. Sure, it's evolved over the years, but at its core, it's still all about the thrill of the hunt and the ups and downs of life in the mining game. From Season 1 all the way up to Season 14, they've kept us on the edge of our seats, spinning off into new adventures that hit home in all the right ways. So, yeah, Gold Rush may have debuted back in 2010, but it's still going strong, standing the test of time by staying true to what made it great in the first place. But how does Gold Rush keep pulling in viewers season after season? Well, turns out not everyone in the cast strikes it rich like you'd think. The show's all about hard work and grit, but sometimes luck's the real boss, especially when nature decides to interfere. In the end, Gold Rush is about teamwork and the grind of working in a high-pressure environment. Those miners have got to stick together through thick and thin to tackle the risks head-on. But what's the environmental impact? You see, gold mining isn't exactly gentle on nature, and the show's caught some flack for maybe making it seem a bit too glamorous. But at least it's shining a light on the harsh realities of the industry and the miners' efforts to do right by the planet. What really sets Gold Rush apart, though, is its authenticity. Unlike some other reality shows, this one keeps it real. Tony, Parker, and the rest of the crew bring some serious depth to the table, making you feel like you're right there in the action. But in the end, it's still TV. While Gold Rush gives us a peek into the world of gold mining, there's probably a bit of Hollywood magic sprinkled in to keep things spicy. Tony's rise in Gold Rush. Tony's been in the game since the second season, and he's become a legend among the regulars. He's not one to mince words, but when it comes to mining, he's got the Midas touch. His main gig has become digging up gold at Paradise Hill Mine, deep in the heart of the Yukon Territory in Canada. This place has been a gold rush hotspot since way back in the 1800s, and Tony's making sure it stays that way. Paradise Hill is just one piece of the puzzle for Tony. He's also running the show over at Tamarack Inc., a job he's had for a good couple of decades now. Between these operations, Tony's managed to rake in a pretty hefty net worth. We're talking around $15 million. Right now, Tony's kind of a big deal in the Klondike mining scene, but what really sets him apart isn't just his knack for finding gold. It's his colorful language and no-nonsense attitude that has made him a fan favorite. Sure, Tony's not afraid to drop a few choice words now and then, but that's just part of his charm. But when you've built your mining empire from scratch like he has, you've earned the right to be a little rough around the edges. Tony's journey to becoming a mining legend is like something out of a movie. He left his farm in the Netherlands as a young man, chasing the promise of fortune in the Canadian wilderness. After some time working on farms, he heard about the massive amounts of money miners were making up in the Yukon. So he packed up and headed north, starting his mining career driving heavy machinery at the Tamarack mines. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. It took Tony decades of hard work before he could finally take the reins at Tamarack and Paradise Hill. The game changer. In December 2022, Tony Beets did something pretty unexpected. He let Christo Doyle, the host of Gold Rush the Dirt, take a peek inside his gold room. Now, Tony's gold room isn't exactly open to just anyone. Only family members or those he really trusts are allowed in. And when it comes to handling the gold, only his daughter, Monica Beets, and family friend, Ruby Mahoney, get to do that. Now, Tony didn't pick Monica and Ruby because they're gold-handling pros. Instead, it's all about trust for him.
So the idea is you only keep people that you're super close to touching your gold. Ruby and Monica, right, are the only ones that actually do the cleanups.
Well, it's just not fair to the employees.
But what exactly happens in this mysterious gold room? Well, it's where all the gold from the Beets family mine gets processed. It's a small building on the claim, housing a demagnetizer that's been around for over 20 years, crafted by Ken Tatlow. The process begins by feeding all that gold-filled dirt into the demagnetizer. This nifty machine separates the iron from the gold. Then comes the tedious part, washing and sifting through the gold by hand. Finally, the gold gets sent through a shaker table to wrap up the job, separating the gold from any remaining dirt. Monica Beets spilled some details about how they handle the gold there. So, the demagnetization process they use can take quite a while, depending on the coarseness of the gold and how much they've got. Once that's done, they give the gold a good spray with a power washer and sift it using a pan and screen. It's all about separating the dirt from that fine, powdery gold found up in Canada's Yukon region. Then comes the interesting part, jigging the gold through a big green shaker table, as described by Beets. This table uses water and gravity to get rid of any remaining dirt and sand, leaving behind pure gold. Now, you might wonder why Tony's been so quiet about his gold room operations. Well, according to him, it's pretty standard practice in the gold mining world. He feels it's not fair for his employees to see all that gold, especially considering the huge gap between their paychecks and what he takes home. He believes that they might forget the costs involved and the little that's left after everything's said and done. But here's the most shocking thing you've probably ever heard about the show. Beets pays for his own equipment. Let's face it, getting into the gold mining business isn't like picking up any old job. It demands dedication, skills, and some serious physical stamina to make any real headway. Plus, having a decent chunk of change saved up doesn't hurt either, because you need some serious gear to get the job done. Now, you might think those gold rush guys get a hand with their equipment bills, but according to Tony Beets, they're footing the bill themselves.
Last year we were working on the hill there. We had a target. We did pretty well. We're going to double up this year. For that, we had to spend a couple $1 million on equipment.
In a clip from the Gold Rush Twitter page back in 2021, Tony revealed that they had to pay a couple of $1 million for gear, totaling around $7 million. That's a hefty sum by anyone's standards, but Tony's quick to point out they didn't just throw money around for the fun of it. They saw it as a necessary move and they had the cash to back it up. They're banking on these investments paying off big time down the line. Now, Tony's not just a miner, he's a savvy businessman too. Money's always on his mind, and it's been that way since day one. Talking with Entrepreneur, he spilled the beans on his journey, how he left the Netherlands, hopped around Alberta and British Columbia, and eventually landed in the Yukon for the cash. They said he could rake in $1,000 a week, so he figured he could do even better. And you know what? He did. Sure, the cash is a big motivator, but Tony's also in it for the love of the game. He's still as excited about hunting for treasure as he was when he first started. And judging by the millions he's pumped into his equipment, it's safe to say he's made quite the name for himself in the mining world. The slump.
Gonna be pretty interesting this week. Kinda anxiously waiting if we're gonna get a license to go to the Indian River.
In the end of 2023, Beets hit a bit of a snag when he missed out on a license to mine in Indian River. But what exactly happened? Well, Tony and his crew were eyeing Indian River as their next big dig site. It's known to be one of the richest gold spots in the Yukon, and Tony was hoping to score big there. He had his sights set on nabbing 9,000 ounces of gold by the end of the season, but snagging a license for Indian River wasn't easy. There's a ton of competition, and the process can be a real headache. In a tense moment on the show, Tony headed in to check on his license application, with the crew and cameras in tow. And guess what? It was a no-go. His paperwork got rejected. And to make matters worse, the whole resubmission process would have taken months. He didn't have that much time, so he had to give up on that dream.
Rewrite a whole bunch then submit it, because that thing, that with everything. By the time they rewrite, redo, bingo. 3-4 months has gone by.
But it wasn't all doom and gloom. Even without that Indian River gold, Tony's crew still managed to haul in a hefty $400,000 worth of gold that week. Still, it was a far cry from the millions they were hoping to bring in at Indian River. That's just how mining works. Sometimes you strike it rich, and other times, well, you come up short.